Hello everyone, welcome back to Magadian Kend, and in this video we'll be discussing about the first chapter of History, Rise of Nationalism in Europe. So the chapter starts off by discussing about a French artist named Frederic Soriot. So in 1848 he had prepared a series of 4 prints in which he visualized his dream of a world made up of democratic and social republics, as he liked to call them. In his first print that you can see right here, he has placed a Statue of Liberty, and at that time artists like Frederic Soriot personified liberty as a female figure. So you can see the Statue of Liberty with the torch of enlightenment in one hand and the charter of the charter of man of rights of man in the other hand. And you can see that the people of American and European continents paying homage to liberty as they pass by it. So and in the foreground of the image you would see the shattered remains of the aristocracy and the absolutist. So this his series was a utopian vision of Frederic Soriot. So a utopian vision is a vision of a society which is so ideal that it is unlikely to be real. So you see that America and Switzerland is way ahead of Statue of Liberty, as they have become nation states. France is at Statue of Liberty, which is followed by Germany, Poland, Holland, Austria, Switzerland, Russia and other such states. But it is interesting to note that Germany at that time was not a nation state, but still Frederic Soriot visualized Germany as a nation state. Then you see from the above Jesus Christ, saints and angels gazing upon the scene. These show fraternity among the people. So nation states were not in the mid 18th century. There were no nation states. The idea and concept of modern states were still in there, in which there was a central administrative system which exercised sovereign power over a defined territory. But a nation state was one in which majority of its population, and not only the rulers, came to have a common identity, a collective identity, and shared a common history of descent. Now the role of French Revolution in the nationalism in Europe. So the real sense of nationalism came with the French Revolution is 1789. So the French revolutionaries said that the citizen of a nation would constitute the nation and shape its destiny. French revolutionaries from the very beginning, they have been there with introducing measures which would create a sense of collective belonging, such as La Patrie and La Citoyen, meaning the fatherland and the citizen. So which emphasize the idea of a common belonging and equal rights under a constitution. And also the French revolutionaries introduced the new tricolor flag, which was made the national flag of France, to replace the former royal standard. They also elected the States General which was elected by the body of active citizens, and it was renamed as the National Assembly. Then the custom duties and dues were abolished, and a uniform system of weights and measures was imposed. So these things, abolishing of custom duties and dues, the introduction of uniform weights and measures, was done by a centralized government, which was imposed in France to replace the monarchical government. You would recall that Napoleon Bonaparte took over the rule of France. He did restart monarchy and destroyed democracy, but in the administrative field he incorporated many revolutionary principles that enhanced that enhanced the nationalism, and it made it more radical and efficient. So in 1804 there was a civil code, the Civil Code of 1804, which was also called the Napoleonic Code. So this Civil Code of 1804 did away with all the privileges by birth, established equality of all before the law, and secured the right to property. So this code was exported to the countries where French armies had conquered the land, such as Germany, Holland, Switzerland, and some parts of Italy. So in those parts, Napoleon simplified the administrative divisions. He abolished the feudal system. He freed the peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. And in towns as well, he abolished guild restrictions, imposed and introduced uniform laws system of weights and measures. This uniform system of weights and measures helped businessmen and artisans a lot. So this Napoleonic wars, the Napoleonic armies, had different reactions by the local people on the areas which they conquered. So in simple words we can say that the reactions of the local government on the army of France was mixed. Initially the people welcomed the armies and said that they were the harbingers of liberty, but soon this initial enthusiasm changed into hostility, because the administrative changes that were brought by Napoleon and the French armies did not go hand in hand with the political changes. Napoleon did also, along with all the good things that he had done, he also did some bad things, such as increase in taxation, censorship, and imposed recruitment in armies to conquer all of the Europe. So because of these few reasons, the enthusiasm of happiness, the enthusiasm changed to hostility. So our next topic is making of nationalism in Europe. So in the mid 18th century, there were no nation states, and every nation that we know today, such as Germany, Italy, France, were divided into kingdoms. Let's take an example of Habsburg Empire. So these empires and kingdoms were very diverse. They had different types of people, and they did not have a common identity, and they even spoke different languages. So the Habsburg Empire ruled over the Austria-Hungary region. It included many regions such as the Alpine, the Tyrol, the Austria and Sudetenland, and the Bohemian regions. And the aristocracy here was predominantly German speaking. So you can see that there were a lot of diversity in these kingdoms, and there were no common belonging or no common interest of the people. And the aristocracy was the landed aristocracy was the dominant class. Even though they were very small in number, they were still dominant. The majority were of peasants, but they were very weak. They were not strong. And then came the Industrial Revolution. Because of Industrial Revolution, there was a rise of a new class, which was the middle class, the educated middle class. So all of this was because of liberalism and nationalism. So liberalism had different meanings. Liberalism is derived from its Latin root word called liber, which means free. So liberalism by middle class is meant that freedom of individuals and equality of all before the law. But politically, it means government by consent, meaning the government which is formed is by the consent of the people. But since the French Revolution, it means that the liberalism means abolishment or removal of aristocracy, making of a constitution, and equal rights under the constitution. But equality of law and liberalism did not mean universal suffrage, meaning universal franchise or universal vote for all. Because you would remember that even though when France was like a democratic monarchy, every citizen was not given the right to vote. The unpropertied men and women were not given the right to vote. So the throughout the 18th, 19th and early 20th century, these people, the non-propertied men and all of the women had ran several campaigns and opposition movements to get a right to vote. In the economic sphere, liberalism meant the freedom of markets and abolishment of all the restrictions on the movement of goods from one place to another. And there were another very major problem in the economic sphere was that there were many different types of weights and measures of different areas. There are different measures in this area and different measures on that area, and different measurements over everything, over every region of Europe. So this made the transport of goods from one place to another very difficult. So if a man was traveling from Hamburg to Nuremberg, he would have to cross 11 custom barriers, and it took a lot of time to calculate the duties, because the duties were calculated based on the weight or measurement of the good. But as we discussed that the weights and measurements for different areas were different, so it took very much of time to calculate the duties for that were to be paid by the person. So it was very difficult, and the economical people, the businessmen, revolutionized and criticized this type of system and wanted to create a united form of weights and measures. So in 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed by the initiative of Prussia, and which was later joined by most of the German states. So this customs union abolished all the tariff barriers, and they decreased the number of currencies from 30. So in Europe there were 30 currencies, and they decreased from 30 to 2. And they improved the network of railways, which enhanced the transport of goods from one place to another. And next topic is about the defeat of Napoleon and the idea of conservatism. So Napoleon was defeated in 1815 at Waterloo, and the conservatives, the European governments were driven by the idea of conservatism. So conservatives is the idea that which says that the traditional societies such as the church, the monarchy, social hierarchies, the people and the property should be preserved. But most of the conservatives did not want to go back to their pre-revolutionary days. They thought that some of the changes brought by Napoleon could in fact improve the strengthen the traditional systems. So they did not want to go back to pre-revolutionary days. They just wanted to take some of the Napoleonic changes and remove most of it. So the European powers, the representatives of the European powers, which were Russia, Prussia, Austria and Britain, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna, and this congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. At Vienna in 1815, they drew a treaty, the Treaty of Vienna, which the main objective of this treaty was to do away and undo all the changes brought by Napoleon and during Napoleonic Wars. It also wanted to restrict the expansion of France in future. So what they did to do this is that they gave some part of the land to different countries to just surround the France, so that it never in future it never expands. And the third main point of the main objective of the Treaty of Vienna was to restore all of the monarchies and aristocracies that were overthrown by Napoleon, such as in France the Bourbon dynasty, the Bourbon family was restored. Now, like this conservative people, the conservative government did not support criticism, so they imposed a lot of censorship, so that the whatever was said in the newspapers was limited, and it was controlled by the government, because they did not want to see any criticism. So in fear of this repression by the government, most of the revolutionaries and societies went underground and became secret societies. So being a revolutionary at this time was complete devotion to freedom and unification of Europe. So there was such one of the revolutionaries, Giuseppe Mazzini. So I might be mispronouncing his name, Giuseppe Mazzini or Giuseppe Mazzini. So he was an Italian revolutionary. He was born in 1807 in Genoa. So he was an Italian revolutionary and was a part of a secret society called Carbonari. But at the young age of 24, he was sent to exile for attempting a revolution in Liguria. So when in his exile, he subsequently founded two secret societies, Young Italy in Marseille and Young Europe in Bern. Duke Metternich said that he was a very dangerous person for the social conservative order, because by his ideas many different revolutionaries set up many new secret societies and wanted to create nation states and unify Italy and other nations. So this was all for this part, and in the next part we will be discussing about the age of revolution in 1830 to 1848.